Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts where today we have another 3 tracks off of an album from an act named Paul James titled Baby It's Just Fine. And if we switch over to here, we've already listened through track 1, 2 and 3 being Without You Giving Hell to Me and My Whole Life in a previous video, so links in the description if you want to check it out. But we've got another 3 today starting with the self-titled Baby It's Just Fine, and we're going to listen through it from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. I mean, it's straight to the point, isn't it, with the piano and the guitar there.
They say I'm Mr. Good Time and I'm Mr. Carefree, that I'm the only one that matters to me. Well, I ain't denying that half of that is true. But baby, you're the one, and I'm the one for you.
Well, I've heard that you've been breaking hearts.
Good to have the male-female dynamic there, the two pairing off against each other.
I know the games you play and what you plan to do.
Well, it's all a matter of give and take. Make no mistake, 'cause this time I'm done acting a fool. Ain't no sin in making love, ain't no moon without the shine. The way I saw you standing there made me wish that you were mine. I've done my running around and I almost lost my mind. You're my roots, I can kick off my boots, 'cause baby, it's just fine. Girl, give me just one dance.
It's very continuous.
Think you've earned the chance.
Undocumented speculation is causing all this hesitation.
Well, I'm not wrong in my reservations. I've done my share of contemplation about you. There's more to me.
Great back, cool response with the backing vocals there.
You can put me in my place. Pardon me for saying so, but there's something that you should know. I'm not the man I used to be. I got this feeling of you and me forever. Ain't no honey without the bees. Ain't no we when it's just me. Yeah, I let a few slip away, but darling, it's easy to see. I've done my running around and I nearly went blind. You're my roots, I can kick off my boots, 'cause baby, it's just fine.
Once upon a time I was fancy.
Nice trade-off to the ride there on the kit.
No one ever got the best of me. But these days I find that I don't wanna be alone. I'm ready to make a house into a home.
Oh yeah, no, they're stunning. Great vocals from the lady there.
No more table for one.
And no more empty spaces.
I've done my running around and I'm tired of wasting time. You're my roots, I can kick off my boots, 'cause baby, you're divine.
Baby, you're all mine.
Baby, it's just fine.
Oh, we're continuing past that point. That was an interesting decision there. I feel like we could have had the track just kind of end on the Baby You're Just Fine part. That would have been a nice sort of resolution there, but I suppose you just wanted the other instruments to just kind of keep on a bit longer. So Baby It's Just Fine, I can hear it's a conversation between a man and a woman just trying to figure each other out. They've been thinking about each other a lot, but it's getting to the point now where, they wanted to get past the talking part and kind of get into something a bit more serious. And I think that there's an interesting kinsmanship between everyone involved there. I appreciate how genuine the messaging is It's very sort of like authentic and genuine and isn't too over the top, you know. They aren't trying to oversell it. So I think one of the things that works with this track is, again, the fact that the two vocalists are working together. I know that it's a given thing that you will have, you know, in a conversation between couples, a man and a woman's perspective, or like, you know, whatever, however people roll. But it's a situation where it's the, you know, get the payoff, the resolution of them working together near the end. You have that slow down part where the lady kind of opens up a little bit. There's further elaboration there to kind of let the listener and know more, you know, showing a bit of vulnerability on their part. And then at the end, they come together. So it just shows that they had to put a fair bit of work in to really sort of like figure out the nuances and get past maybe their own sort of like insecurities about the placement within the situation. But I like the fact that they can both sing well and that they harmonize nearly with each other whilst also having their own respective moments. And I think that at some point the lady was singing some like kind of notes, humming some notes there, whilst you know, Paul James was sort of popping off on the mic. And I think that there's just a nice sort of spatial awareness, you know, chemistry between the two, which makes sense considering the subject matter. I think it's also just a kind of nice breezy track there with the country elements there, the crispy guitar lead with some interesting pentatonic soloing there, the steel string guitar there, nice and bright with the open chords. The keys, nice and sort of peppy on the right side with the arpeggios and little melodies there. The drums not overdoing it or going too heavy on it, but maintaining a steady beat without trying to do sort of too traditional with the country feeling. They're trying to sort of keep it catchy and illustrate a sense of perception and kind of groove to it. But I do also appreciate that when you went slow down, like near the end there, just to allow a moment to just kind of like chill and sort of take stock. Like the reason I said at one point that it's very continuous is that there was quite a bit of similar stuff going on with instrumental layers and the vocals and everything through the first few minutes. And I was just looking for a moment where it was like, oh, we're kind of slowing down and really kind of like figuring out what we want. And I just think that kind of adjustment within a composition is important. I'm glad we had that there. So I think the instrumental layering, the chordal choices, the harmonies, etc., was fantastic, really good there. I liked how the different instruments were kind of layered and put together within the mix. I think also the structure was tight in terms of like how they placed and spaced things. I think it was important to get as much context between the two people involved as possible. But I'm glad that they understood to put a solo section near the end to allow the instruments to tell the story when we'd had quite a bit of story from the vocalist. So ultimately, I think it's quite a well done track, and I think the performance is believable, so it's a good start to proceedings. But now we got track number 2 for today, Lucky Spot. I like the rotary on the chorus on the left. It's a very different mix though. The guitar on the left is a little bit dominant though.
Walking tall through the doors and I catch your eyes. Give me a double Johnny Black and you can hold the ice. It's on at the Lucky Spot.
I mean, the stereo panning is a strong statement, but I do like it.
You get off. She said, honey, when I do, you'll have been long gone. And we died here at the Lucky Spot. We've got rednecks and winos, truckers and cops. Everyone is welcome at the Lucky Spot. Down at the Lucky Spot.
Great sense of kinsmanship there.
Here at the Lucky Spot. Well, it's packed in here tonight and you can barely breathe. There's a game blaring loudly on every screen. And it's hot, yes it is. The crowd is ready to pop. She passes me a wink and then she makes a stop. I say, when you open till? She says, till I'm not. And we drop, oh Lord. We laugh with all we got. We've got hours between us, so I'll take a shot. She'll be leaving with me when those ourselves together from the lucky spot.
You could have potentially have like double layered the vocals to kind of double track them, or like to have them kind of wider in the mix, because you've already got like the guitars quite wide in the mix, and it's an interesting sort of consider where we're wanting our attention within the mix at a point.
Yeah, the lucky spot. Let me tell you, we got long necks and Jose, a beer and a shot.
Because like the vocals are kind of like this in the mix, but the guitars are like that side and that side, you know.
Hey, where are we going tonight?
To the lucky spot.
Yeah? What they got?
Well, they have a smoking lounge and jukebox machine.
They even got a lost and found.
And girls that'll make you scream.
Aw, hell. Looks like I'm going down. To the lucky. Let's get lucky.
Because it was interesting there, because they had the vocals like kind of spaced, almost sort of cinematically, like you can imagine like people around you having their different perspectives there.
At the lucky spot.
But then we have the vocals in the center when we're singing a lot of the time. But to be fair, we probably weren't wanting to take too much attention or trying to we didn't want to fight with the guitars in the mix or anything like that. I think the asymmetry with the way the guitars are panned made it more interesting, for sure. So I think the second track, or rather the fifth track off the album, Lucky Spot, is about a bar that lots of people go to, the Lucky Spot, and where people can kind of get down and have a good time. And it's about people sort of like telling them all about it, all their friends and stuff like that. It's where everyone goes to have a good time. And it seems kind of raunchy, and I dig that. It's a great time. Sounds like a sort of a dope sort of roadside bar. So with that in mind, do I think it sounds like a track where they were trying to sort of discuss that? Yeah, I think it was. Like, part of the reason that it works so well is because of actually the chemistry between the people speaking and singing, as well as Paul James. Sometimes you can have almost like a phoned in or an authentic kind of cheesiness to these sorts of things. We have these conversations between people, but the way that they handled things here seemed like, oh yeah, this is an environment we're creating within the track. And I think because we had it later on in the piece after it had a lot of singing, it's like, oh right, we're kind of getting that sort of like clarification of their positioning with the Lucky Spot. They're kind of selling it further after all the things they'd spoken about, and I kind of dig it. Or maybe it's what led them to go check out the Lucky Spot in the first place. Either way, it's really endearing. It's charming in its ability and approach, and I think that, you know, being able to sing as well as talk and act and create that environment is really important within a track, and makes it adds a lot of depth to it, I think, which is necessary to kind of make interesting music. So I think secondly, I think that the kind of honky-tonk kind of rock and roll-y kind of like sort of like stylings that we've got with the different kind of guitar riffs there, with the slide guitar parts there, it was really charming. It kind of sounds like music that you might hear at a roadside bar, so it kind of puts you in that environment, that atmosphere there internally. You can imagine it, as well as when you had like the people talking around the sides of the stereo field there, you can imagine what they're discussing there. It's very easy to do that. In that sense, it works incredibly well. And like, I think that the way that it's mixed with like the way that the drums are kind of like, they're a bit squished, but it kind of sounds like a live performance on the kit there. So you can imagine a band playing at the roadside bar as Paul James tells their story about it. And I dig it. I think that's really cool. I wasn't always in love with like the way things were positioned within the stereo field. It's not that I disagreed with the choice of the way the notes or melodies or guitar riffs or solo sections or anything, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff harmonically, which I'll talk about in a moment. But just sometimes it was just a little bit sort of like distracting where things were positioned from a post-production perspective. It seemed like the guitars were very like much like hard panned left and right and stuff like that. And so there could have been some stuff in that kind of 50% range on either side to sort of like balance it out a bit more. If we had the vocals going out to 30% either way, you could have potentially sort of put them out to 50%, just kind of like evened the stereo field out a little bit. Otherwise, very good. It's a very different mix to the previous track. As a viewer, there might have been more hanging on, or more happening. So, what do you want to say about this last part? I think that the way that we worked well within the major and minor keys, as well as the pentatonics and some bluesy elements there, almost some Dire Straits-ish moments there with the guitar parts. And there's this interesting one and two and three and ba 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 ba, with some parts being sort of staccato and other parts being legato for a bit of push pull there. The drums pushing forward with kick and snare patterns in, and also some occasional sort of like tom fills or something like that. It's great diversity compositionally, and it was just interesting at the start to have the guitar panned on that one side. You know, like it was like, oh, what are we doing here? And there's like cymbal shimmers, and suddenly everything opens up. So there's lots to appreciate from like the way the harmonies and sort of instruments are put into it, as well as the structural parts and the vocals as well in the story that's told. I dig it. Now, well done. Because then we have To My Knees, track number 6 or 3.
You passed me in the doorway. We were walking in and out. There was a message in the glance we shared. There wasn't any doubt. There was a long, slow smile. He wrapped it up in style.
Yeah, the vocals are panned differently now. I like that.
You were acting on your phone. You asked me if I knew it, the way from here to there. You took me with that come on line. I had you with my stare. That started long, sweet days. I watched your spotlight plays. We fell in love right then. We thought it'd never end. I was your author, you were my queen. I gave you all of me and served your everything. You were my paradise, I was your Hercules. I brought you treasures and we sailed the 7 seas. We were together then. Do you remember when I was down on one knee?
The keys are subtle, but they add a nice harmonic depth to it in the mid-range.
Together we move forward. Life taught me how to help and share. I gave my love and heart to you. I didn't have a care. I've always been the kind of man, smart and strong and planned, but you took everything from me, and you gave nothing back. I see now your attraction for the fame and lights and glory. Couldn't handle our distraction. You wanted a different story. You were always taken with no giving. There was nothing left for me. There was no loving, only living. Our future was history.
Interesting phrasing there.
Strong man, you made me weak. I thought I held your heart, but you just slapped my cheek. You wanted my every moment, my heart, my soul. Left me trying to heal from all you stole. Once we were together, free, but now that can never be. You just left me down on my knees. I ain't playing the fool no more. Too many times you closed the door to everything I tried to give you. One day you'll know just what I lived through. I spent too many days just trying, but in the end you left me crying. I'm stronger now. I know somehow that loving you, it was worse than dying. I was a good man, you were a taker. I thought you loved me, but you were just a faker. I'm better now after being with you. I learned no one should hurt from the things that you do.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, a lot of these songs have similar messages. Like across a lot of these sorts of songs or subjects from like musicians I've heard, it's like an intriguing shared experience.
We were together then, but that'll never be again. to my knees. No heart will ever take me to my knees. Ah, 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 ah.
You could have potentially have added like a reverb or like a delay tail to the end of that line there, just to kind of let that kind of simmer over the end strings or something like that. Still, I think it's a good track, To My Knees. So I think this third track for today, track number 6 off of the album. So I think this third track for today, number 6 off the album, titled To My Knees, is about being brought to your knees by the people that you love. And I think, as I mentioned, that's something that a lot of people are able to relate to. I think that people be able to relate to the Baby It's Just Fine part, the first track we checked through today. Lucky Spot, I'm sure people have gone to a bar, and like spent time with mates or something like that, or kind of like had a fun time or gone somewhere a bit more risque. And then To My Knees here, we have ourselves walking through our interpersonal relationships and how we sort of deal with each other and how we feel when people sort of like step on us. And, it's heartfelt. It seems like it's genuinely something that's difficult that Paul James has gone through, and they speak their truth here, and it comes through elegantly. There are some interesting vocal melodies and harmonies here, and I think that they work better in terms of positioning than the previous track. I like the fact that there was a nice sort of shimmer and sheen to them, and honestly, like really pleasant to listen to. It's a good song, and no worries at all. I think that it's a longer track at 4 minutes 42, but we don't overstay our welcome. We don't overdo it. So when you have a song like this, you've got a lot of context you want to provide. You've kind of got to find a way to be able to get that in, and I think that we managed to do that here. We have little kind of piano breaks and stuff like that. It is very vocal focused. So like a lot of it is more sort of providing a platform for Paul James to sort of speak their truth. And I think that's okay for sure. But then there's the call and responses with some of the key parts and stuff like that as well occasionally, where they sort of feed off of each other and work with each other. So that's totally fine. I think another thing that works well is how sort of gentle and chilled out the backing is. There are some interesting minor and major chords put in here with no real edges to them. There's no point where we're seeming to express anger with the sounds of the instruments that we're putting forward here, which I think, considering the subject matter, just kind of shows the classiness on Paul James's part there. We could have gone for a heavier tone with the guitars or something a bit more kind of like wild there. We could have also had like a faster tempo or like a less kind of like palatable chord progression. We could have even had like an occasional diminished here, but I think a lot of this was maybe even trying to create a track that sounded really pleasant and sweet, almost to sort of mirror the sweetness they felt when they were in love with these people in the first place, without putting us in a position where we are trying to sort of like maybe it's enough to get the person to listen to finally get to the point where we can tell them how they've affected us. We're aware that we can't just kind of smash them in the face with our track in a way, because they might not even get through the first bar of it, So I think that the actual the chord progressions with the major minor triads, as well as the more kind of like familiar progressions there without any harsh edges, is another thing that works in here. But it's also that we incorporate some strings for a sense of further romanticism to it. We're adding new instruments or ones we haven't used a lot of before to kind of mirror and suit the tone or texture of the track that we're trying to sort of like create there. And I think that they add on top. There are nice sort of accompaniment to some of the vocal parts there. They don't interfere too much with their range. And so I think ultimately it's just a nice balance between Paul James trying to sort of talk about some more sort of like difficult subject matter, whilst also trying to make great, really great happy sounding, what is happy sounding music? It's just really sweet sounding music there with the tones of the guitars, bass, and the drums, piano, and strings there. It's beautiful, and it's effective. And so welcome to the conclusion of my review of these 3 tracks from an act named Paul James off of the Baby It's Just Fine album, tracks 1 to 3 being Baby It's Just Fine, self-titled, Lucky Spot, and To My Knees. Now, I have spoken about each of these tracks in their own little mini conclusions, so I'm not going to overcomplicate or overdo things here. I'm just going to give my overall thoughts on the tracks that we've heard today, as well as provide any sort of applicable constructive critique. It's another show of their ability as a vocalist here, not only to tell stories, but also to incorporate like another accompanying vocalists, or such as in Lucky Spot, Baby It's Just Fine, and To My Knees, all 3 actually. We had like a male, like a lady involved in Baby It's Just Fine, where they were in conversation about their relationship and kind of how they feed off each other. other and eventually decide to start a life together. Lucky Spot, where it's more about the people getting together, go to the bar and have a good time and sort of like singing and riffing off of it. And then To My Knees, I think we did have other vocalists doing harmonies, but it's more sort of focused on Paul James being the primary sort of like storyteller there, you know. And we showed solid vocal technique and a hidden chest voice there. We hit the notes cleanly for the most part, and it was great to listen to it. I think that it's good to be able to collaborate, but also stand on our own 2 feet. And it makes for really sort of effective music when you're able to do both. I think additionally, you know, sticking with the core concepts of like, you know, having the guitar, you know, either steel string guitar chords or pick parts there. The lead guitars with either slide parts or like the kind of still kind of like slightly more kind of like fizzy guitar leads, just to kind of work around the pentatonic swells and major minor scales and stuff like that without going too sort of like chromatic or kind of over the top progressive about it. I think it kind of keeps the tracks kind of sounding like that together, if that makes sense. We're not going on too many different adventures. It's familiar territory if you're like kind of more sort of like familiar with their previous 3 tracks, you know, like the first 3 tracks off the album. And we typically are able to get the subject matter to work alongside what we're discussing there. I think there, with the strings, especially in, you know, the 6th track, To My Knees, kind of adds more of a nostalgic feel to it, you know, like kind of maybe music of the times of when I first got with that person there, kind of looking over things. I just think that you need to be able to write quality, kind of catchy music if you want people to listen to it in the first place. So if it is us kind of reaching out to them, sort of like to discuss it, then they'll be more happy to listen to it if it sounds good. And there's no point where Paul James or anyone else overdoes it on the microphone. We're not trying to go for any harsh edges. It's music where it's designed to try and be as easy to listen to as possible, whilst having a bit of kind of like push to it, like Lucky Spot and stuff like that, you know. Again, there's a little bit of heaviness to it, just not too much. We were trying to sort of mirror the kind of like live sound, kind of like rock and roll, kind of like band from like a club at that point, and it was sick. It was good. And in general, the performances across the instruments within these 3 pieces were solid. I was really happy with the drum work in the first 2, and all 3 of them. Having the strings is like a little bit of extra kind of like decoration and flavor into My Knees was a nice touch. And the various sort of guitar tones throughout the 3 worked really effectively, niching and issuing a state of separate independence. And they never sort of interfered or tried to sort of do too much to overcome the vocals, aside from like clear solo sections. These songs are very sort of vocal focused, but it is Paul James's album, speaking of their own experiences, so that makes sense. I think finally, the studio production was interesting. I liked the first track, Baby It's Just Fine. With Lucky Spot, some of those guitars are quite wide in the stereo field, so they're a little bit distracting, trying to sort of like follow things from left to right. But I think To My Knees kind of came back to a tour of form, and we might have simply been trying to go for a more sort of organic feel with Lucky Spot. I'm used to people when they're launching albums having tracks that sound like they were recorded within the same session, and these tracks sound like they were maybe recorded in separate sessions, and I think that's totally fine. You can also have an album which is a collection of songs you've worked on over time, so like it's your journey, your progression through it. And I think that, just before I go any further, it's for anyone who can make an album, it's phenomenal that they're able to do so. This isn't me like having a go or anything like that. It's just giving my thoughts on it. I think that a lot of the design decisions that we chose here made sense. You know, they were effective. It's just being sort of transparent about the fact that I can hear that there are slight differences to the way the guitars are EQ'd and recorded and filtered, different ways to the way the guitar parts are done, you know, down to the drums and all the other sort of like elements or ingredients there. And I suppose, if anything, these are just different chapters that Paul James has put forward within this album, and I'm interested to see what else they have next. Each of the tracks was still nice and loud though, without pumping. There weren't any sort of like technical errors in the studio, you know, like the songs came through clearly. Just a really interesting album so far. I think this is part 2 of 4. We'll see how we go with the next lot. But thank you very much for watching my review of these tracks from an act named Paul James off of the Baby It's Just Fine album, titled Baby It's Just Fine, Lucky Spot, and To My Knees, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via the various social medias and their, the YouTube page. Stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.